Life is all about balance and harmony, and the balance between TTT and STT in an EFL lesson is no exception. Ideally, the lower the TTT is, the more efficient the lesson is. But it is not that easy. The amount of TTT is influenced by many factors. One of them is the classroom type. Group lessons will allow teachers to speak a bit more, as there will be more instructions and classroom management involved, which will be compensated by work in pairs and groups. However, in one-to-one lessons, the amount of TTT appropriate in the group lessons is likely too much, as you have only one student, and when you talk, it means they are silent. Another factor is the student's level. Students at lower levels tend to speak less due to their lack of knowledge and ability to speak in English, whereas those in the upper levels will be more eloquent. Let us look at the percentage of TTT appropriate for each level in one-to-one lessons. Beginner, up to 50%. Elementary, up to 40%. Pre-intermediate, up to 30%. Intermediate, up to 25%. Upper intermediate, up to 20%. Advanced, up to 15%. The numbers are approximate, as apart from language level, TTT will be influenced also by the student's personality. Extroverted students tend to be more talkative than introverted. Age, teenagers might share fewer life stories than adults. And lesson type. Some lessons require more input and instruction from the teacher. So, how can we get closer to this balance? How can we reduce TTT and increase STT? There are a few ways to do it. First of all, TTT can be overused at the expense of lengthy and unclear instructions. Thus, to reduce it, it is a good idea to prepare clear and brief instructions in order to avoid confusing the student. Unclear and lengthy instructions will require that you repeat them all over again, as the student won't be able to understand what to do. You can also demonstrate what to do by starting to do the task. This will also save you time. We will see how it's done in a video about giving instructions. In the instructions, you should pay attention to the language you use. Too complicated language is full of phrasal verbs, idioms, collocations, and structures unknown to your student. Grading language can help you avoid confusion and reduce TTT, as when you say something clearly using simple language, there will be no need to repeat and rephrase it. Another trick is to give your student more responsibility during the lesson. For example, instead of repeating the instruction or information from the textbook, ask the student to read it instead. This concerns easy instructions, quotes, controlled practice tasks, questions to answer, and such. Delegation of responsibility will allow you to increase STT while at the same time practicing pronunciation and decreasing TTT. In case the student doesn't understand something, you can always chip in and help on the spot. When introducing new grammar or vocabulary, it is better to use guiding questions and eliciting techniques instead of lengthy explanations of words and structures. Guided discovery not only decreases your TTT, but it involves the student in the process of learning, making it more meaningful and memorable. However, if your student is unable to figure out a new word or rule during eliciting and guided discovery, you can always help them by providing the word and giving a brief explanation of grammar. In order to be able to do that, you should prepare for the lesson beforehand, creating this brief explanation just in case. Brief explanations can also be achieved by visualization and demonstration. When working online, there is a reason we use cameras. Demonstrating some objects into the camera to elicit a word is better than trying to explain it with words. You can also use interactive whiteboards, pictures, timelines, and other visual material to help learners understand what you mean. Prepare these visual aids beforehand, not to waste time during the lesson. Another source of decreased TTT is the use of gestures and miming. When working online, the use of video calls allows us to use gestures and facial expressions to our advantage. You can use it while giving instructions, checking the task, correcting mistakes, and so on. First, you will need to accompany it with a verbal instruction or phrase, but after a few lessons, your student will understand you without words. Finally, do not be afraid to take pauses and be silent from time to time. Silence during the lesson is okay. It allows students to focus and think, get ready for the task, and find the right words to answer your questions. No need to fill in the silence with meaningless comments and mumbling, as it increases your TTT and also disrupts the learning process. Also, do not echo the student's answers. If you want to react to what student is saying, you can nod or use gestures, but not words. Do not try to fill every silent gap. Do not try to help the student unless they ask you to. Reducing your TTT does not mean you should be silent all the time. We've already talked about bad TTT. Now let's look at the cases when TTT is necessary. We've already mentioned that there are two types of TTT. What we've seen by now are the examples of useless or bad TTT and the ways to reduce it. Let us look at useful or good TTT as a contrast. The teacher is the source of correct English, so if you are silent all the time, you deprive the student of valuable input of accurate English speech. Hence, if a teacher knows how to talk to students, how to grade their language, how to use it to benefit the student and aim of the lesson, TTT can become quite useful. Let's look at some situations when increased TTT is justified. Increasing TTT in one-to-one lessons is inevitable during role plays, brainstorming, other communicative tasks where you are the student's only partner. You can simultaneously use phrases and structures which you would like your student to use, and also be a language instructor. You can use stories and situations from your own life during situational presentation of vocabulary and grammar. Students like to listen to stories about their teacher and will remember words and structures better if they are related to your life, that is real life, than if they are from the life of an unknown character from the grammar book. When giving instructions, you decrease TTT during the instruction itself, but you are welcome to demonstrate the activity instead of explaining how to do it for too long. Use show, don't tell technique. Another situation when increased TTT is okay is discussion of some organizational points during the lesson, as well as the presentation of a new coursebook or separate tasks and activities that the student has never done before. Also, discussing technical issues and being the student's tech support when teaching online are acceptable. Moreover, there will always be an increase in TTT at the beginning of the course when teachers try to build rapport with students, gradually improving the balance afterwards. To see if you have the right TTT-STT balance during your lessons, you can listen to a recording of your lesson and analyze it. Self-evaluation will reflect the action points concerning useless or bad TTT and will allow you to work on it in the next lessons one step at a time. You can ask yourself the following questions. How much time did you and your student speak during the lesson? Could you make some of the instructions and explanations shorter? How? Do you fill the pauses with unnecessary comments? Could the student figure out the rule without your explanation, but rather with the help of the guiding questions? Could you avoid explanation and provide guiding questions instead? Could the student read some tasks, instructions and explanations instead of you? To sum up, instead of being afraid of TTT and trying to increase STT no matter what, it is better to consider TTQ, or Teacher Talking Quality. In other words, instead of going on and on about something, filling in the pauses and inserting unnecessary comments, analyze your talk, reduce useless TTT, and don't be afraid to engage your student with stories, interaction, appropriate and comprehensible input, which will help them learn and help you be a good teacher. Enjoy teaching!